Hello and welcome to ScreenHour with me, Mikey Mears.
And with me, Kieran.
This week's episode, and we are going to discuss quite a refreshing and good film. A bit more to it than that, but that's why it's an entire podcast episode. But The Woman King, we're going to be delving into that. And as usual, we're going to have spoiler thoughts and non-spoiler thoughts, and general impressions, and just general review, type of thing, an overview.
Yeah, I mean, last week I mentioned The Woman King as, one of my moments of the week. I've tried to heavily convince you to watch it, but I think it was already on your radar anyway. But as I said, I've been to see it about a week and a bit ago now, and I was like, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm eager to hear what you have to say. Like, how did you feel after coming out of the cinema?
I thought it was great. I thought it was really uplifting, and I do like a general prefix. It's due to the type of film it is and the content it talks about and stuff. I just a general disclaimer. I know I'm a white male, so if I come across, I don't patronise it at any point. I'm very aware of that, but it comes across very empowering for that, and it's very refreshing seeing all black female cast. Well, just female cast in general, really.
Yeah.
Never mind, people of colour, bless them.
Well, I think what I think was important for me, is it for me? I don't know, but it wasn't just like a remake with female cast. It was a brand new story that was designed for a female cast. Because you got the Ghostbusters, and then they decided to do it with a female cast, right? And I'm not for or against that. I'm just sort of like, yeah, okay, whatever. But why can't you just make a better story, a newer story for a female cast? And they did the same with Ocean's 11. They did Ocean's 8, I think it was, with a female cast. And I wasn't really sold on that either. But it was a full female cast where it was designed for a full female cast. It was designed with that in mind. It was created with that in mind, if that makes any sense.
Exactly, though, and that's it. Is that it was an original film, and it doesn't feel like it's, I don't know, trying to make something again. It's not trying to recapture lightning in a bottle in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
With something else, it's not a spin-off. It's not trying to ride off the coattails of anything else. And I think that's really good. It has a strong cast as well. But basically, the general plot is that in an African nation, where it's dare I say it's set back in the day, if you haven't even watched the trailer, and it's during slavery times.
It's set in 1830.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, that's it. So it's set then, and there's this African tribe of people, and they pride themselves of having really good warriors, and their main warriors are, spoilers, women warriors led by the General Viola Davis.
Yeah, Diadoje,
that's it. And their clan are basically kick-ass. They're brutal. They're the best of the best of them.
They're like the SAS of their day.
Yeah, they're the SAS, the Green Berets of their day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they're protecting their kingdom. But their kingdom's currently helping the slave trade. And for the matter of the film, and I get more into spoilers, but they essentially turn around and go, we don't want to do this anymore. We don't want to be part of this, the slave trade. And it's basically them rebelling and burning the slave trade to the ground, or basically kicking off.
But yeah, basically they didn't want to add fuel to the problem because they were losing a lot of people from their villages and families and stuff that were being sold off to the white man as slaves. And they're basically saying, because I mean, this doesn't get talked about enough, but in Africa, they started the slave trade. the Americans didn't start it, the Africans did, right? So there was black owners with black slaves, and then obviously the white man comes over. The white man sort of, was like, oh, we can do this sort of thing, and then and then the Americans made it a far worse situation than it was ever was, because in Africa they looked after the slaves, or the American slave trading didn't, and that's sort of like an area of history that's not really spoken or mentioned about. But it all originated in Africa, and it was basically them sort of saying, we should not be selling our people off for slave trading. We need to find a new source of income, a new way of life, and it's kind of that sort of turning point is where this sort of story comes in.
That's how it essentially starts.
Mm.
They decide that within the first 20 minutes of the film, essentially. Well, less than that, probably the first 10, 15 minutes of the film. But I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the history, like how the Africans started slaving first. But in this, and I think in general history, people come to their shores and they introduce the concept to them, and they're like, oh well, yeah, maybe we can start like having slaves and stuff. So that's what, again, what is even worse with it, the like quote unquote bad guys who are in it are a neighbouring tribe, and they're dealing with the slave traders, and they're the ones going to
the Ojo Empire, or
Ojo Empire. That's it. Yeah. That's it. So they're like they're the neighbouring, like quote unquote enemy tribe. So they have to deal with them. But at the start of, and they should explore it more, but this is very mild spoilers, but as you say, at the start of the film, it addresses that the tribe we're following, Viola Davis's tribe, and like John Boyega's, like the King's tribe, they're like dealing with the slavers themselves. And then, as I say, they turn around and be like, no, let's make our money from palm oil. There's other ways we can make money, we can make trade. Mm-hmm. And that's what it comes down to, and them changing their opinion and then like their heart on that, and how they're going to process that going forward. And they have a lot of resistance during the film, and that is the plot of the film. Yeah. But there's a lot of things to like about it, including, like I said, and like you've said as well already, is that it just feels like fresh. It feels like an epic, like history thing, like almost sword and sandals, but not like, it's not Troy, don't get me wrong, or like Spartacus film, or like Kingdom of Heaven, or like whatever, Gladiator, yeah, exactly. But it's like that, but it's not like that because it's more original. Like I feel like we don't get, and also I'll say this being like so a white guy, but how often, and maybe I just haven't looked enough, but it's the blockbuster and the marketing of this. How often do you get like an African historical story, which is,
or even an African hero, like as the protagonist?
Yeah, exactly. Which isn't fucking Zulu. Yeah. From back in the day, or like, which is like a horrible.
And really, Zulu was more so about Michael Caine.
Exactly, and then it's like and that's not particularly great depiction. I was discussing that what's quite intriguing is, to my knowledge, and dare I say I'm quite an avid film goer, spoilers this podcast or whatever, is that one of the reasons they used Black Panther as a lot of inspiration for this film, and that I think purely the inspiration for that is just nothing to do much with like the content of the film itself. It's more so they also wanted to be a film where they have a 95% cast, which is black. And in the year 2022, it's mad that you still have to strive for that.
Yeah, it's mad that it's not, it's something that's out of the norm to see. It should just be commonplace. You know what I mean? It's a weird, when you really look into it and realize, how many films have been released, but it's like all a black cast or whatever. You can probably count them all on both hands. Whereas the sort of the history of, the Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. No, wait, is Homo erectus?
Homo sapiens, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, it's Homo sapiens. Homo erectus is a part of the evolution, but yeah, as Homo sapiens, the you know, we basically all started off with dark skin. That's where all our origins and evolution come from, right? And the fact that we don't have many stories, or hardly any stories of, basically nothing really happens in history before the 1800s, does it? In any films or anything you see, you know.
yeah, and there's that, and it's just like a part. Like it comes down to the marketing, and I don't get me wrong, or like there is probably films out there, but like they're not like pushed enough or big enough.
Yeah, I mean, I said to you, I saw nothing, no promotion whatsoever about the Woman King, only because I was in the cinema. I saw a poster and I thought, wow, that looks cool. All right, I'll go in and see that tomorrow, and that's literally what I did. I literally saw no promotion whatsoever of this film.
Well, funny enough, I never watched a trailer for it on YouTube until I went to the cinema and I watched Nope. And Nope is obviously, well, despite what I just said, that's a mostly black female cat, not female cast, mostly black cast.
Black cast, yeah.
Yeah, but they played a trailer for that there, and I haven't seen a trailer for it since.
No.
Admittedly, I haven't been like, that's the only time I saw a trailer for it, and then I watched it on YouTube, just started like searching it for it. But as you say, they haven't put a lot of money for it.
No.
I'd be interested to know like how much box office push they gave to it towards anything else. But as historical epic films go, I wouldn't say it's as good as Gladiator for me, because Gladiator is fucking one of my favourite films of all time. But like, I don't know, I think it's better than Kingdom of Heaven. It's better than like, yeah, I'd probably say it's better than Troy.
I said that I thought it was better than Northman. What do you think?
Yeah, you said last week it's better than Northman. Yeah, I feel like it is.
Yeah, I mean there are two very different things.
You connect with the story a lot more. The story's a lot more emotional.
Yeah.
The thing is with Northman, it really leans into
the psychedelic,
the mythic psychedelic aspect of it, and it feels epic. It feels mad. Where, despite there's like some mad action scenes, you connect with the Woman King a lot more, and it feels a bit more intimate, and you connect a lot more with the characters.
Yeah, in the Woman King.
In the Woman King compared to Northman, I feel like the Northman, like, he's mad, and it's a great film in its own right. Yeah. But
I mean, I think the one thing for me that I preferred with the Northman over the Woman King was the Northman was more brutal, and I think the Woman King should have been more brutal.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I feel like because of the themes that the Woman King sort of delves into and focuses on, such as the rape and the brutality of the Adoge, right? I feel like the scenes could have been more graphic, more bloody, to really sell it. Because what was the film called? The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the ones with Daniel Craig. The scene in the first one, there's only been one actually. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. They didn't do the other books, but basically in the beginning of the film, Lisbeth Salander or something, the main protagonist, she basically is raped, and there's like a full 8-minute scene where you actually watch her be raped, and it's so graphical, and it's the most uncomfortable I've ever been watching something. But that is how you're meant to feel in that situation, It's dark, it's horrible, and you're in that space watching this happen, defenseless, like you can't do anything, and it was so brutal. And as horrible it might sound for me to say, I feel like they could have done that more in the Woman King to really sell it.
But no, I feel like sometimes that if you do that, though, you will just put people off.
Yeah, it's a catch-22, but at the same time, this is a thing that needs to be, spoken more about, so people feel more comfortable when there is a situation, where that may arise in their life. but just because there's a stigma of it's uncomfortable, people don't like to talk about it or whatever, then they never come forward. And whereas if the sort of stigma around it is not as restrictive anymore, where it's a bit more spoken about, then I suppose people that experience it can feel more comfortable talking about it because it's a bit more in the pop culture sort of thing. I know it is a very sensitive and difficult subject.
I think like with certain stuff, it's like Game of Thrones when it was on Game of Thrones. Like if you, I don't know, it's just a hard line to talk to even do really. I feel like if you can just allude to it like they have in this film, and it's very evident and painful that what has happened to that person. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, like they sold it. Like I understood like the backstory and everything, but I think I just wanted it to be a bit more brutal, sort of. In John Wick where you can see like the blade go through the guy's eye. I wanted to see more shit like that.
Yeah, I think
just to really sell like how brutal and badass these women were.
I think don't want to be too political, but what they've probably done is it comes down to ratings, as in like
age ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they already are like not pushing marketing enough for this as they think they should, the studios probably thought, or the makers, sorry, not so much the studio, the writers and directors or whatever, and the editors, more to the point, have thought, well, if we have this much blood, then it bumps it up to a 15/18.
Yeah,
then you're getting even less people in. Yeah, it's less of a market. I imagine that might be a big point of it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, to be fair, but I think that's such a shame. It's difficult because we're of age now where we can watch any film we want. Whereas when we were kids, we spoke about it before. We had to sneak into cinema and try and lie about ages and stuff to see these sort of like other films we wanted to watch, and it's a shame really because especially with independent films, they tend to have higher ratings. The better films tend to have the higher ratings because they're so much more raw. Whereas the films that everyone can see, which tend to be the shittier films, are just like like a U or a PG or something, so everyone can watch it because they know that they need those numbers because the film's gonna be shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but no, yeah, it is the same with the IPs, as you call them, independent projects. That they are, they're just not. I mean, you want them to be mainstream, but also you don't want them to be mainstream because then they become oversaturated. So it's kind of like trying to find that perfect line.
It's a line you've got to balance, like. But no, for what it's worth, I'd definitely recommend it. I think, and again I'll say this as not somebody from their community I wouldn't want to identify as or whatever, like not because they're not bad as, but that's just I can't identify that. But it's people need to see it to support it.
Oh yeah.
As well as it being like, I wouldn't say that if it was a shit, if it was a shit film, I wouldn't be like, oh, just go watch it. If because it's got an all-female black cast. If it was a wank film, I probably I wouldn't tell you to watch it. But it is a good film. It takes some, as I've learned today, and this is something I was discussing, is that the film itself does take some quite like historical liberties, like with the truth.
Well, as with any cinema film.
And that's another thing I was going to say as a prefix. But at the same time, like what historical epics don't.
Yeah.
You can't expect to watch a film and think it's going to be completely historically accurate because they need to dramatize things to actually make them more interesting and keep you keep your attention to keep watching and find out what happens next. I mean, just think of TV shows like the reality stuff. There's always coming up in this episode. Then there's that little bit of the episode, and then there's like coming up after the break. And then after the break, it's what happened before the break and what's coming up. and then you watch like 5 minutes of the actual, raw footage or whatever, and then it's coming up after the break, and what's just happened in this episode, and then it's like you're just always watching replays back and forth because they're just kind of hyping the drama.
Yeah, and when it comes down to is that it's a good story, and that's what you want as a film going experience, like, and that's if you want to like I remember saying, I think this is like, I think the filmmakers said this themselves, or Viola Davis said it, like, if I'm going to quote someone, I suppose I should, I apologise for finding out who exactly said it, but the paraphrasing is that they said, yeah, we've tried to make a good film based on true events. Yeah, it's not based down to every the details, but if you want to watch history thing, watch a documentary.
Yeah.
And like, it sounds a bit cheeky on that part, but it's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, this sort of film, like films like these, where they aren't historically accurate necessarily, is a way of opening conversation, because more people watch films and documentaries, unless it's a murder documentary, I suppose. But more people watch films than documentaries, and really the film is just a way of starting the conversation, and then it's the onus on the viewer to then be like, I was really interested in that, I want to research more about it, and then they can go and dive into all the different articles and everything. So the films are like a starting point.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, I'd never heard of this African tribe, so then I watched the film, heard of them, and then I looked at the history myself and delved into it deeper then, where maybe because I'm not a history scholar, or even like thinking black for whatever it's worth, but I haven't, it never came on my radar.
No.
So
I mean, and that's another thing as well. Our upbringing, every history lesson was either about the Greeks, the Romans, or the Victorian period. That's literally all we were taught. We weren't taught about anything about Africa or Asia or anything like that.
He's taught about like slavery, but he was just taught about how bad it was, and
like how bad the white man did slavery. It wasn't necessarily about slavery in Africa. It was slavery at home.
Exactly, and also it wasn't about much about the slaves rebellion or anything like that, which is good. Like, it's refreshing, like I say.
Yeah, and especially nowadays as well, a lot more is coming out in history, because basically history was completely whitewashed, and you got like Sir Edmund Hillary, and then they've got Christopher Columbus, and those people are known of the first one up the mountain, the first one to sail across the seas, right? But they are all white people, right? This was going to be my moment of the week, but I slightly suggest talk about it now. There's something I watched on Netflix by Kevin Hart called Black History Month, and he's basically talking about how black people did certain things before the white person did, but because they aren't white, right, they didn't get the notoriety, so they're never seen as the first person that did it, right? So I can't remember exactly the names of the people, or who the names of the people that we use the white person for, but basically there's a lot of historical famous things that happened that were like, oh, who was the first person that did this? And I'd be like, oh, Edmund Hillary was the first person to climb Everest, but it turns out it wasn't. It was someone else, but because they were black, they weren't allowed to be written in the history books as such. They were just ignored until a white person done it. And with history now, I don't know what it's like in schools now. I'll have to wait until I have a kid and find out what homework they bring home. But I feel like now with things changing for the better, we're understanding the truth behind things of, it's not just the white person that did all this. We're actually seeing more of other minorities, of what they've sort of, what they did necessarily.
Yeah, well, this is it, is that, it's stories need to be told, don't they? For everybody, like. It doesn't need to be whitewashed, it just needs to be the truth, and that's what it comes down to. But I know it's contradicting what I said, about, stories need to be good, but it's, everybody's equality story in it, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I think that's just down to that's what we like, I think, so much about this particular film is because it's a story we haven't seen told before. It was so refreshing and new and interesting. Because, I mean, everyone, this is a bit controversial, but everyone loves Black Panther. I'm not a big fan of Black Panther. It's not because it's a black cast or anything like that. It's just I thought the film was a bit standard. It was a bit average for a film, and which hurt because, especially the CGI. The CGI was horrible, right? And this is off the back of Avengers Infinity War. So where did all that money go, right? And Ryan Coogler, he's a brilliant director, and it wasn't well translated in Black Panther. So I don't know if there was some creative liberties with Marvel that they just took too much control, or
It's just before Infinity War, innit? Yeah.
oh, was it before Infinity War? But still, like Marvel had so much money. Like I don't understand why the CGI was rough. But I know it's Black Panther could have been so much better, right? And it just wasn't quite there. And for me, this film made up for that.
I think Black Panther is a good film. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good film. It rides off the coattails a bit of the MCU, but it is a good film. But like, but unfortunately, it's the only, like, apart from the Woman King, what we're discussing now, it's in the zeitgeist anyway. Despite it coming out in like the tail end of 2017, I think.
Yeah.
Or it's one of the only big all-black main blockbuster films, like.
Yeah, I mean it's important that they did it. I just felt like they, didn't do it as much justice as they could have done it.
Yeah, exactly.
It could have been better.
The action of Woman King is good, but like in a lot of action films, it does remind me sometimes a bit of, as much as I like the Bourne films, it reminds me of early like Bourne films and Taken and that type of thing, where like there's a lot of quick cuts.
Yeah.
So when you can see it, it's great, but it just needs to be wider angle shot.
We mentioned it, I think, with Northman. They had quite a few long shots. There wasn't a lot of cuts, was there?
Yeah, that's what I like.
You like to see the blows land. You don't want it just like camera cut, camera cut, camera cut, camera cut. So you're too busy trying to refocus on what the action is, rather than just watching. Yeah.
It's just easier to track what's going on and appreciate it more. Just generally easier to watch if you've got like a wide angle and you just, if you've just got that on that wide angle for a couple of seconds. And I understand that if there's a battle, you've got to represent the scale of the battle. You've got to bounce between different people or whatever, whether that be bloody Lord of the Rings or whether it be like historical epics or Star Wars or something. I don't know. But you've got to bounce between different people fighting or whatever.
Yeah. But when it's the same actor or same character in one particular fight, we don't need 20 different camera cuts for like, a 3-second segment.
The only criticisms I have of it are really like nitpicky things.
Yeah, totally. Like we are literally scraping barrel for things to bitch about.
The nitpicky things are truly nitpicky, like, and also they're only like, and this is things in general, like a good thing towards it is there are things I can't really discuss without spoiling it too much. There's no real cast member who I feel is wooden or lets the team down a bit.
No, I thought everyone was great. To be fair, the person that surprised me was Lashana Lynch, because I thought her in Bond was ass. Well, Bond was ass anyway, but I just felt like her character was way too wooden or plain or boring in Bond.
I thought her character in Bond was great. I thought her character in Bond, like, she wasn't as good as Ama Diarma's character, because she like really shines. She's really good, but I like her character in James Bond.
No, I thought she was just bland and boring. Like I don't know. She felt like she was a token character rather than an actually interesting character with a purpose. She just felt attached, sort of thing. Whereas in this, she was incredible.
She was incredible in this. There is John Boyega is good, but I have a little criticism about his writing as opposed to him as like him acting in it. I think his acting's good. Whenever you see him, he's like absolutely smashing it.
What's your criticism on his writing?
Well, I'll get into it on spoilers, but I just want to like, we'll have just
Sow the
more
seed
general
now.
overview. What'd you say? Sorry.
You're just going to sow the seed now.
Yeah. But it definitely needs seeing, like on the like scale I very roughly created the other week. It's a go see it in the cinema. And I remember I walked out of it one party yesterday, and she was saying, "I'm glad we saw it in the cinema because it's how epic it feels, and it feels like quite grand to see it in the cinema. It's not, don't get me wrong, it's good drama, but it's good action epic as well."
Yeah.
Another good thing go on, Kieran.
No, go on, you go. You finish your thought.
Another good thing I really liked about it is the score is good, and the score is just, I don't want to sound like stupid or come across it any sort of naive or too much or racist, dare I say it, but it's music which fits the theme of it, and music which fits the environment it's set in. It's not like got some generic.
Yeah, it's not.
It hasn't got Beyonce in it. Put it that way, or like a good like or Doja Cat, a black female pop artist. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't.
Films that are created with black actors and black directors and stuff, they tend to have like that sort of musical theme where it's like mostly R&B or rap or something like that. As sort of stereotypical as that might sound. Whereas in this, it's the music's very fitting for the style of 1830 or 1820, whenever it's set. It's got the sort of the correct instruments and it's proper scores, not music.
The singing as well. The singing feels quite powerful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of singing and like done by the cast themselves.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It feels very raw when they're doing that.
Yeah, and it's not just generic, as you said. It's not generic sounding. It's not like oh, that sounds like Africa, with the Owimbowe, like that sort of bullshit. It's like, oh, that's Africa. It's got that sort of tune where you sort of like you recognize the sort of setting and sound and how it mashes together, but it is new music. It's these new melodies.
It doesn't feel like a blunt instrument, is that? Like it feels like it's used when it needs to be. It's used in emotional scenes. Excuse me. Another thing I low key like about it as well, and this is more spoiler territory, but I'll dance around about it now. Is it's not a love story. Like there's a love story in it on the very back burner. Like if I'm going to use that metaphor, like by back burner I mean literally on the like a saucepan on somebody's lighter, like disposable lighter. That's what it's on, and that's done like quite tastefully.
It doesn't overshadow the story. That's the main thing.
It doesn't overshadow the main theme and the story, like exactly. And another one I like about it is it's despite it, one of the main like struggles and the problem it's getting over is slavery. It's quite uplifting and it's emotional, but it's quite fun as well. There's some quite fun bits in it, and it feels like there's got a sense of community in it. Do you know what I mean? Like they feel like they've bonded well with each other. The sisters of the tribe.
So yeah, no, I definitely think the cast gelled really well together. Like there were some very humorous moments, particularly with Lashana Lynch and the girl. I can't remember what her character was called.
Naomi or Nomi? I think it is. Like if I butcher these names, I'll do dreadfully apologise.
No, is that what Lashana Lynch is called in Bond?
That's what the vehicle character. Like a lot of films and TV shows, you follow a character from the beginning. She's like the fish out of water, and so you can identify her. But I think that's what she's called. The young girl.
Is it like Nani or something, or is that what Viola Davis is called?
It's close to Naomi. Dionysus or Nasik is what thing is called. Viola Davis.
Now we.
Now there we are.
Yeah, and Naniska is Viola Davis.
Yeah, exactly.
Izogi is Lashana Lynch.
Lashana Lynch is probably my favourite character. I like Viola Davis, and you can see like Viola Davis makes sense, and she's vulnerable when she needs to be.
Oh,
But then
yeah,
we're going to spoilers now.
Yeah, go on. Yes, go and jump straight to spoilers then. Spoiler time.
Spoiler time. Like, definitely worth recommended. Go see it. Go support it for what it's worth as well.
Yeah.
We're not just saying that because it should get supported or diversity or whatever. But it's generally sick.
It is a really good film. It's like 100% worth your time.
On my rating, it'd say go see in the cinema. It's not wait for it on streaming or wait for whatever.
I mean, out of 10, I'd give it an 8.5.
Oh yeah, out of 10, I'd give it a solid 8 as well.
Yeah.
To get into spoilers, these are very nitpicky things.
Yeah.
Lashana Lynch's character was my favourite character. They made like a proper thing of her being the one who's the funniest. Izogi, or however you pronounce her name.
Yeah.
Izogi. She's the one who nurtures Maui the most, I'd say. She's also like the one you see the most who's like really formidable, apart from Nansika, Viola Davis's character.
Naniska.
See, like Naniska, sorry.
Naniska.
Naniska.
Yeah.
But also on top of that is that, so you're like, oh, I like her, she's cool. She's probably my favourite. Was she your favourite? Did you like her the most? Who did you like the most?
I actually like Viola Davis's character Naniska the most.
You meant to follow her, to be fair. But basically, Lashana Lynch dies.
Yeah, her death was a little... I don't know.
I saw it coming. I saw it coming. She goes, "Why do you mean you saw it coming?" I says, "Because apart from Viola Davis, and she was never going to die, she's the most likeable one. The kid weren't going to die. She was too young. Now he was too young. And I think that would have been like, it wouldn't be very uplifting. Because she, like I say, like she was the vehicle character. She was the character, like, she learned as the tribe, as you did as the audience. She was the exposition character, or whatever. You saw her the most.
So she's a comic relief.
As well, yeah. Another big one, like I said about historical accuracies, like, and some dodgy things. So, bearing in mind, like I said, like in non-spoilers, I only know this and I've only investigated this because I watched the film. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on my radar, like we've said. But basically, apparently, the tribe used to sacrifice like 500 people a year because there was such a big kingdom, just in the name of a god, like. And it was quite in vain, like. They just used to kill, like, it was close to genocide because they used to do it every year. And obviously, they used to go around, like, and again, it's all part of framing and perspective, but one of the newer girls in the tribe is from another tribe.
Yeah, she's actually a slave herself that's been kidnapped.
She's actually technically a slave herself who's been kidnapped. But, in the guise and perspective of the film, she's like, yeah, she's part of the good guys now. How cool is that?
Yeah, because the thing is, like, that's the thing, like, King Gizu, which is John Boyega's character, right? Their sort of kingdom, as it were. Then the film portrays them as the good people, against everyone else. They're not actually. They're a moral grey. Everyone else is a moral grey. Because if you look on the atrocities and the things that they did, then if we look up the history of what their tribe did, it's horrendous. It's ridiculous. It's like looking back at English history. We always thought back then you thought you were the good guy, but really you weren't. You were committing, as you said, genocide and things like that. So you shouldn't really be rooting for them. But in the purpose of the film, you need someone to root for. Otherwise, what's the point in watching it? So yeah, it's they're morally grey, but closer to wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand, like, you've got to make them likeable as well, innit?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If this is the people you're following, you don't want to watch them kill 400 people, decapitate their heads just for no apparent reason, really. You know, no religion is its own type of thing, and that's too dodgy to get into. But, like, it's, you know, they're killing like 500 people a year. They were also doing slave trades. But, like, if anything, I suppose you could go in the guise as me being the optimist is that this film's about them changing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have a nitpicky thing, and this is more so about the writing, and again, whether this is historically accurate, is that John Boyega does, like, whether it's because I've been watching Lord of the Rings at the same time of this as well, or whatever, and I know that's a fantasy epic, so that's definitely not historically accurate. And like the other like Sword and Sandals films, or where it would be like, what's the really good medieval film with Timothy Chalamet on Netflix? The Last King.
The King.
The King. I don't know. And Outlaw King. But basically, like, despite him being the king, he just sits on his ass.
Yeah.
In wrestling schemes, like, that's really pushes and like promotes like the female characters. But, you know, a lot of other kings like were riding into battle with their with their army.
Yeah. They're typically at the front of the army as well back then.
Yeah, it's as you said, typically the front of the army. But and the other like little one, and this is little, as like the criticism is so. This is purely done just as a plot device for them to learn that Naui is Nasiska's daughter, is that you have this newborn baby, and bear in mind, this is in the 1800s, so it's not, Kieran knows what I'm going to say, so it's not like you can patch them up really quickly or whatever. She has this newborn baby, gets a machete, but when I mean newborn, she's literally just been born like within like minutes.
But umbilical cord still attached.
Umbilical cord still attached, and just goes, I'm going to give her away, but for me to know her that she's mine, I cut this baby with a machete with a couple of like, you know, an inch long like cut, and put a shark tooth in the baby, put it inside, then try and seal the cut. Are you telling me, again, this isn't like me being, this is me being a nitpicky a bit, like quite a lot, I admit that. But like, why the fuck would you cut a newborn baby just for that plot device?
I mean, back then, I can't, you know, it's, I wasn't around, so I can't say yay or nay to if that was a thing that was done, because it is plausible, but also as a human, I know growing up, I'm like, why the fuck is it so lumpy on my shoulder here? I can't sleep right. Fucking thing, like, it wiggles around, like, what the fuck's in there? I need to cut this out.
You'd grow up, you would have grown up and got cut it out by now or whatever, but like,
yeah.
I'm like, it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's a bit mad. You just wouldn't do it. Like, if you loved that baby, and I know she gave her away and she's like, oh, she wants to see her again. But it's just stupid, like, you wouldn't do that to a newborn baby.
No.
That's just pretty mad. But to get on to some more positive things, in my opinion, it's the times when Viola Davis is vulnerable, and she does it really well, she's a great actress, but like, are appropriate, and the times when she needs to be badass, she absolutely smashes it.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know if I said this before, like when I mentioned it last week, but Viola Davis wouldn't have been my initial pick. You know, someone says we need an African warrior, you know, king, woman king, warrior woman king. You know, the first person to mind would not have been Viola Davis.
You know, and she just absolutely smashes it, like absolutely out of the park. She does no wrong, really. She's like absolutely fantastic. But I mean, you sent me that video earlier, Ms. Mojo, and I watched that. And basically, the only thing apparently she does wrong is her accent.
Wow, it's not. Apparently, she uses a generic like Hollywood African accent. But like the point they tried to make in that video, which kind of does make sense, but they all have different accents. And they're meant to be like. But I suppose you could justify that, not to stick up for the film too much, but
yeah,
because John Boyega said that he was doing his family's Nigerian accent, and then the girl that plays Naui, she says she uses her family's like South African sort of accent, and like yeah, you should you have used all different accents, when you're all meant to be like from the same tribe and in the same area or whatever. Probably not, right? For continuity of the film, but it's representation at the end of the day, all right, and that's something that they as actors chose to do, and we've acted, we've done those things, and sometimes as an actor you choose to do something because of a principle or whatever, and you have to, I guess, respect that. And also, and if you really want to look at it as continuity of film, what I did is, because I did notice it while watching it, that the accents, I even said the accents were a little difficult to understand to begin with, but then I got into the rhythm of it. But it was, just think that because they've been they've been in part slave trade, they've been kidnapped or whatever, they could have come from all across Africa, right? So of course their accents are going to be different. So that was my sort of reasoning in my head. It doesn't take away from the film at the end of the day.
This is what I was saying, is that, like, not to defend the film too much, but apparently the kingdom was quite huge. So
Yeah.
not to make it about me, but in typical life, we use examples we know. For spoilers, I'm from Tamworth, which is uninitiated, might as well be Birmingham. Yeah, it's 20 minutes away from the centre of Birmingham. But people who live in the centre of Birmingham, if you travel like 20 minutes, half hour to like Wolverhampton or Warsaw, they sound totally different.
Yeah, totally
to
different.
people who, totally different accent, and that's for the sake of a 20-minute drive.
Yeah.
So
whereas back then it would have been like a 2-hour ride, probably, or horseback ride.
what like positives and negatives were you saying, which are like very spoiler-fied?
I mean, I wasn't. When the whole, I mean, we mentioned it as it was a back burner subplot of stuff, but it didn't take away from the main plot, which was the little romance story between Naui and, I want to say his name was like Marcel or something like that.
Malik, is it?
Malik, that's it. Yeah, I think it was Malik. Right, their little romance. Initially, I was like, "Oh, I hope this doesn't go in, all in on the fact that she's been saved by a white man." Granted, he's got African DNA, but they all say he looks like a white man, and she's saved by the white man and paid for out of slavery. I was like, I hope that's not how the film ends, because for a good 5-10 minutes, I was like,
this better not.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. I thought, like, if for some reason she doesn't get saved now, and that is the ending, is that like the character we were following, she just gets brought and taken away from this quote unquote horrible place and situation. It ends like that.
"So you're tired, Chan? You've been yawning a lot, mate. Am I boring you?"
You'd be tamping, but now you would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm glad it didn't go in that direction.
And it doesn't do that, to its credit, like.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a close call. It was a close call. So I was like, please don't do it. Please don't do it. And they didn't. They didn't do it. She sort of, saves herself initially. But so that was one thing that I thought I was gonna really complain about. But another thing I think I could probably complain about was the whole, Naui was her daughter.
Yeah, I know what you mean there.
Yeah, it's sort of, it felt like an easy storyline. Everything else was so good, but then that particular bit where she's like, "Oh, you're my daughter," it would have made more sense if she became an adoptive daughter than it's actually her daughter.
It didn't have to be a thing. That
No.
being like,
because Viola Davis's character, Naniska, she still could have been raped, and she still could have bore a child and lost that child or whatever. And then this Naui character comes in, right, and she thinks it's her child, and it turns out it's not, right? That would have been a far more sort of twisted, like knife in the stomach, twisting storyline. But then she decides that she actually wants to nurture this Naui and treat her as if she was her own child. I feel like that would have been more interesting than it actually is her child.
Yeah, exactly.
Because imagine if, in the swimming baths and she cuts off the scar to reveal the shark tooth, but realizes there's no shark tooth in there. That would have been really interesting.
Yeah, I thought that would have been better personally.
That
I
would be
like
really
how
interesting.
at every point they tried to make Naui to be, I don't know, she's smart. Like, do you know what I mean? She's kind of.
She seems quite well educated, given she grew up in like a tribe African village with parents that don't respect her.
Yeah, it's not so much like Tribe African Village, but as you say, like parents who neglected her, who just couldn't be asked with her.
Yeah, she's very well read for people that can't read. If you think about it, back then they wouldn't have been able to read, would they?
Well, she's opportunist, weren't she? She was like,
Yeah.
she saw stuff like, and like she took it when she could. But now, I don't have any like big looming things which are like big negatives, like.
Well, as we said, we're really nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was so fresh. It was new. It was something different that I hadn't seen before, and it was at the end of the day as well. It was fun to watch, and you go to the cinema because you want to escape the real world. You want to be entertained. Are you not entertained? I was. And yeah, I say my nitpicking bit is it could, if I was to have done it, it wouldn't have been her child, and she would have taken her under her wing regardless. Lashana Lynch's character, would she have died? Probably. Someone had to die to show the brutality of what they go through. Someone main had to die. Could have been Viola Davis because the film's called The Woman King, right? And if she, you knew she was going to become the Woman King, and if she had died before she got the title, then it's kind of misleading, right? It couldn't have been Naui because, to kill off, as you call it, the vehicle character, the one that we're with throughout the entire film, and she's still young as well, doesn't make sense. You could kill off all of her friends, it still doesn't sort of land home because they're not the main focus. The only other person they could have killed was like the second woman in command, like the really tall, slim woman.
Yeah, Menza. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have killed her off, but again, it wouldn't have landed as heavy as it did killing off Lashana Lynch because she was the comic relief character. So I think it made more sense for her.
Like I say, it's like a backhanded compliment. Lashana Lynch's character died. It's like the reason she died is because she was the most likable, but like, yeah, she was likable.
Yeah.
And what was another thing I'd change? I make it more bloody. That's all I do is make it more disgusting and raw and brutal.
I could have made it more brutal, but I suppose more. I don't know. I would have had more establishing shots or more wide angle shots during the fights themselves.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and I think.
But the fights themselves were good. The choreography was good. Apparently, like I was listening to an interview, they've done a hell of a lot of training for it, and you can see that it does pay off.
You can definitely see.
That's the thing. I think that's what hurts the most is because that we're capable of doing what they did, but the camera doesn't justify what they did.
Oh, exactly. 100% agree.
Yeah.
But no.
But I was thinking while watching it, to be honest, was this would make a good series. To really build on the sort of the history and the background of these characters and what they go through, and you could really create a great sort of series out of it because it's something again we haven't seen before.
Yeah, they could have made it like a 6-episode HBO thing, easy.
I mean, to be fair, they could have made it just a standard series where you can get recurring seasons.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with these characters, but the foundations they've created.
But now, did you know, like, the fun little fact, Lashana Lynch is going to play Miss Honey in, like, Matilda, Netflix's Matilda?
Oh my Christ. Miss Honey was my first crush ever.
Yeah, so it should be quite good, look.
That's who's going to play Matilda?
Oh, I don't know, some like little kid in it.
Bella Ramsey.
Oh, I don't know. Would be good if it was Bella Ramsey. That'd be jokes. She was in bloody everything. Alicia Ware, apparently.
If it was redone in 2010, they probably would have had Abigail Breslin or Chloe Moretz as Matilda.
Yeah, Emma Thompson's playing Miss Trunchbull, but like,
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks well different now. Miss Trunch, I would have said she looks more like Jackson opposing, but yeah, she does look quite good in it.
Yeah, no one's going to be as good as as good as Emma Thompson is, she's not going to be as good as the original Trunchbull. Like, she was
terrifying, man.
fucking terrifying. I would, though.
Yeah, I would definitely.
I'm joking.
I would say that. She'd chuck it about like. But now, there's our thoughts on the Woman King. And we quickly touch on our moments of the week.
Yeah, you can go first.
But my one's like completely different to. I would say Lord of the Rings, but that's going to be in next week's episode.
Yeah.
Because for a couple of reasons, really. I wanted to talk about The Woman King while it was still in cinemas to try and promote it. And like, you know, I'm not like we got a million followers, but to try and talk about that and capture that while I still can.
Yeah.
And I still have 2 episodes left of Lord of the Rings as well. That's all I say. But I could say that, but you know what I will say is Daisy May Cooper's new dramedy on BBC called Am I Being Unreasonable is a really weird like mix of being a thriller and a like drama / comedy, like hence dramedy. But it's like really weird. It's her grieving about something, but she can't tell anybody. But it's about her being like, you know, a housewife in a posh part of England, and how she like, yeah, makes that funny looking after her young kid and taking him to school or whatever. And her relationship she makes with her new best friend who moves to town, or does she not move to town? It's really weird. It's like it still has Daisy May Cooper's writing and vibe in the sense that it does feel like this country still, because it's quite colloquial and really like quite fun and weird. But honestly, there's bits in it where it feels like Gone Girl, and it feels like a David Lynch like type of film, and it's quite thriller-esque. And there's like a couple of twists. There's 6 episodes, and there's like a half episode each. But I'll definitely give it a shot. Like, definitely watch it. It's quite weird. There's like secrets in it, like in a typical British drama, and she starts to trust this one friend. Is she as good as she comes across? There's some fishy things about her, and then basically halfway through the show, when like all these fishy things start to pile up, it then goes from this friend's perspective, and it sees why like those things have happened. That's when it makes me feel like it's like Gone Girl. But like, there's some really funny and weird bits in it.
Such as?
So like the little kid steals the show. So the little kid actor, he opens some presents for his birthday, and she says, "Oh, did you like the camera I brought you?" And she's like, "You opened it without me," and he just goes, "Yeah," like, and he like pretends to be really like buzzing about it, but he's not really. He's not at all. he's not buzzing. He's just like he like tries to like skate around awkward social situations just the way his mom's taught him, but he hasn't got quite the skills to lie about it or whatever. And there's bits when people are just mugging each other off. There's this like it woman who's in the school, and she's meant to be the best, and she's the funniest and like loveliest, but she's quite bitchy, and they bitch about her. It's just different. Like it's funny. It's funny,
Mm.
but like it's got some quite dark bits in it. Like this, like it talks about domestic abuse a bit, highlights that. But there's also like there's a twist at the end, and she's dealing with guilt, and she's like almost getting haunted by some things. But what happens in the end is it's been hinting towards, but it's not. It's I don't know. It's not forced, and it really earns it. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's good. And also, it's not what you would have expected, considering like she's the what like Ron who wrote this country. This country's like just a mockumentary, funny thing set in the Cotswold. She wrote it with I think it's pretty sure she wrote it with the lady who co-stars in it with her.
Mm.
But it's good. It's really worth giving a watch.
And this is on BBC, is it?
iPlayer. Yeah, it's BBC.
All right. I'll have to give it a look. See, I mean, there's another thing I watch on BBC at the moment called well, it's not out yet, is it? The SAS thing.
Yeah, I think we might even do a whole episode about that, considering
Yeah, I think we will.
if it's so good, because that'll be on BBC. And I acknowledge, like, I know a lot of people have, at least a couple of the like mainstreaming things or whatever. But it'd be nice just to do something on BBC. So we might end up doing an episode on that.
Yeah.
But no, it's again, Am I Being Unreasonable? Really good, and Leah, she co-wrote it with the lady who also stars in it.
Hmm.
But no, that's good. It's a bit trippy and weird,
Yeah.
as well as having some, as they like to say, laugh out loud moments.
Yeah, so my moment of the week then. I mean, I've alluded to it already, but I've rewatched it literally this week. But I also watched it, I think, like 2 years ago or something when it came out. It might have been 3 years ago now. But it was Kevin Hart's Guide to Black History. Because it's Black History Month, which I actually think it's a great time as well for the Woman King to be released. I don't know if they planned that or what. But it was really interesting because it tells you about the history of the unsung heroes in Black people's history, and it's again the unsung heroes, as I've already mentioned, of people that did things first before the white man did it, and it's they never got any of the credit for what they did, and I cannot for the life of me remember anybody's name. Right, but it's actually very surprising of the things that you've been taught basically, because it's done in like a sitcom format where he's talking to his daughter, right, and trying to get her interested in history, and he starts telling her about like people that look like you and me did this before, the white man, and sort of thing, and this is what you've been taught in school, but this is the actual truth. And it's very light-hearted in the way it's done. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Kevin Hart, so it's gonna be very light-hearted, right? But it's very well done, very tasteful, and yeah, it's just many commonplace things that we know today that you realise, they weren't the first person to do it. It was someone else, and it just really blows your mind of like how whitewashed was my childhood.
Especially history lessons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is incredibly surprising and shocking, and yeah, I think I wholeheartedly recommend it because it's very eye opening, and again, like we've already mentioned as well, these sort of things sort of ask, they're the starting blocks to biggest questions that make you then want to research more about it and understand, what else have I been lied to about, and what is the actual truth of other things. So yeah, it's I recommend it. Like I say, that's on Netflix. That is.
Is it? Oh, good.
Yeah.
But like you say, it just gives you like, I don't know, don't want to sound like patronising at all, but it's like thought provoking. It makes you think, I'll look into this myself. But no, that's this week's episode.
Oh, so yeah. What did Charlotte think of Woman King?
Charlotte really enjoyed it. She thought it was great.
Yeah, because to be honest, I wasn't sure if it would be her taste or what.
Nah, Charlotte really likes it. The thing is, like, Charlotte likes violent stuff, but like, not for like She cringe at stuff. You know the bit when they're going through the bushes and like
Oh
the
yeah,
test.
and they get like stabbed and shit, and like.
She
the
couldn't
test.
really watch that. Like she finds it like cringy, as in like she finds it hard to watch. But
Yeah, I get that.
but she says she likes like stuff with a good story, as long as the violence is justified or whatever. So she'll like it. But we were saying just how refreshing it is, like with me and you have touched on. But no, Charlotte really likes it. I'm glad we watched it at the cinema. Like I say, yeah, next week I think we do Rings of Power.
Definitely.
I'm actually. Robbins, how did you come up here? Robbins,
Was he allowed to open the door?
did Mommy leave the door open? You've been up here this entire time. But you've been up here for the last hour. You would have cried. To be fair, you've had a piss up here.
Oh mate.
Charles just got back as well.
Alright.
Then.
And we will catch you in the next one.
Catch you in the next episode. Have a good time.
Bye.
Bye. You've had a piss up here.